please. Roll call.
Alderman Bob Bauman,
Here.
Alderwoman Malali Cox, Mr. Grady Crosby. We can't hear you.
Here.
Thank you. Bill Christensen,
Here.
Mark Flaherty.
He's mute.
Mark, you're on mute. Mark Flaherty. Representative Kaylin Haywood. Tanya Johnson. Here. James Cantor.
All of it. Yep.
Sorry. Secretary Blumenfeld.
Present.
Senator Devin LeMahieu.
Here.
Mr. Greg Marcus.
Here.
Mayor Dennis McBride.
Here.
Alderman Jose Perez. Gerard Randall.
Here.
Representative Jesse Rodriguez. Omar Sheck. Liz Sumner.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. First order of business is any discussion and the approval of the meeting minutes from our last board meeting, which was on September 27th of 2024. Do you have any discussion? Do you have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. Next order of business is Steve's got a trifecta here. So Steve, we'll kick it off to you to go through our next three topics, starting with our financial.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Today's agenda is finance heavy as management presents its 25 budget. We'll also be seeking authorization to execute a bond defeasance transaction that we'll be talking more about here today. We're going to touch briefly on the 2024 forecast, but the bulk of our time will focus on the upcoming year. So in your packet today, we've included the standard financial report for the current year, which are on pages 7 through 14. And having just reviewed the year-end forecast 4 weeks ago at the 927 board meeting, I'd like to focus principally on some of the forecast adjustments we made since. So let's turn to page 10 first, which is a comparison of the most current forecast, which is in column N as in Nancy, to the forecast we presented in September, column M as in Mary. Drawing your attention to line 65, column O, you can see that the most recent forecast is down by just over 300K or about 1% relative to September. Much of that negative variance is showing up in operating expenses, notably line 15, operating wages, and line 18, utilities. Operating wages was affected by an accrual that the report distributed in September. We've since adjusted for that, which is driving the variance you see in this line item. As for utilities, projecting energy usage in the North Building has been a bit of a challenge due to the lack of historical data points. As we accrue more data, we're able to better project future periods of time. Based on what we've seen so far, we've adjusted up our utility expense, and I would say somewhat aggressively for the remainder of the year to hedge against that uncertainty. Also note line 12, parking revenue is adjusted down for the remainder of the year. August financial results came in lighter than budget, and as a result, our partners at Interstate Parking are taking a more conservative approach in forecasting fourth quarter revenues. I believe the current projections are conservative considering the amount of revenue we were able to generate from our surface lot in 2019. So I think there's opportunity for pickup here for year end. You can see in lines 29 through 39, there's not a lot of movement in our non-operating expenses, our non-operating revenues, nor are there a lot of variances in the non-operating expenses on lines 41 through 63. Overall, management is not concerned with the immaterial downward adjustment to forecast. At this point in the fiscal year, there's simply not a lot of risk left in these numbers. And my expectation, based on remaining event activity, as well as conservative forecasting for utilities and parking revenues, that our final net income number will likely be stronger than what we're presenting here today. I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on the other exhibits pertaining to 24 of this meeting, in large part because they haven't deviated much from September. And we'll touch on these forecast numbers a bit more during the budget presentation today. Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions at 24, happy to dive into the next agenda item.
Are there any questions? Yep.
On the parking, who sets the parking rates? Because I see a significant deviance from today's $5. I've seen $30. I mean, who actually sets those rates?
We set them in conjunction, consultation with Interstate. The rate that you see, the $5 rate, is because we're doing only hourly parking now.
Marty, you're muted. I'm sure there were some pearls of wisdom there, but I don't know what they were. But
One of the things too, we were just, we could speak up when we're doing, you don't have to yell, you don't have to shout, but we're still working through some of those bugs from an IT standpoint. So please speak loudly, and I think that'll help some of the folks on the call too. Sorry, Marty.
No, we'll do. It's just, no matter how loud I speak, if I'm on mute,
Don't
nobody's
yell.
hearing me.
Don't yell
I'm
at
not gonna
it.
yell. Bob, as I was saying, we work with Interstate, we look at the event activity going on downtown, and we look at the other parking garage rates so that we're in line with everyone else.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for
Well,
Steve?
on a $30 night, do we fill the facility? Do we reach maximum capacity, or what's our load factor, if you want to look at it that way?
I don't have enough data to give you any type of a really definite answer. Buck season starts at home. Admiral season started last Saturday night, so we're just now seeing. I think one of the things we're going to be, one of the things we'll be looking at is what is that? What's the variation if we have more cars or lower rate? Are we going to make more money? So it's dynamic pricing, and we will be watching it. But up to this point, we haven't had the activity to really make any firm judgments.
Can I ask a really quick question? Can they hear well outside?
Yeah, we've addressed the speakers on the outside, and the reason why we have the doors closed is one of the problems we were having is that feedback was coming from the speakers out there into here, causing a reverberation delay.
Okay.
So this is what we're trying to address that, and that's why we want to speak up. The doors closed so that the mics can pick us up.
Okay, just making sure.
Oh,
Some
thank you.
people seem like they were kind of straining.
It's because Marty wasn't shouting.
Yes.
Because I was muted.
I think we've had a couple more people join. Omar, I believe, and Jesse have joined as well. So, all right. Are there any other questions for Steve on the financial report? If not, we will go into the budget presentation. Steve?
Okay, thank you. This is the third straight week Marty and I are presenting the budget to board members. Consistent with past practice from prior years, earlier this month, Marty and I began having individual meetings with members of the Finance Committee to review process and assumptions we use to develop budgets. Those meetings are incredibly valuable to me and Marty, and thank the Finance Committee for the time they've put into this process and the feedback and recommendations they provided. The proposed budget has also been reviewed in open session with the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee unanimously passed a motion recommending adoption of the budget by the full board today. Thank you for that support, and let me thank you in advance for today, sitting through yet again another run through of this budget presentation. It's been a lot over the last 3 weeks, and we appreciate it. I think it's fair to say that this budget has been well vetted before coming into today's meeting with the full board. So following my comments.
All right. Love you guys.
See you in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Just to be loved.
Mark, we love them too.
Following my comments today, and after answering any questions board members may have, we will ask the board for a motion to adopt the 2025 budget. So first, let me say this is a budget management is proud of. Will be challenging to meet and beat, but does not introduce material risk to the district's financial position. 2025 will be a full year of the North Building being open, a full year of the parking structure being open, and a full year of the Baird naming rights deal. And a year in which we're investing substantially in IT platforms and personnel. 2025 will be the benchmark against which future years will be measured against. We're very excited about that. This budget produced 3 very positive metrics. Number 1, positive growth in the restricted fund. Number 2, positive net income before depreciation expense. And number 3, After controlling for one-time exceptional factors in the 24 forecast, 11% year-over-year growth in net income. So let's spend a few minutes talking more about what I mean when referring to those one-time exceptional factors in the 24 forecast. You'll see here momentarily that our income statement is going to show negative year-over-year growth, which can seem a bit atypical. However, turning to page 15 of your packet, 2024 had two unique circumstances that impacted net income in a very positive way. The first unique circumstance was, of course, the RNC event. This event was unique for many reasons, but in this context, we're focusing on the unique impact the RNC event P&L had on the district's income statement. Marty discussed at the September board meeting that we negotiated an all-in price for the RNC. Not only were the revenues at a volume that, frankly, no other event has come close to producing in the last 7 years, but the margins were such that a significant portion of that revenue dropped to the bottom line. As you can see in this exhibit, 2024 produced more revenue and higher margins with less events during June and July than actual results from 2023 and what we're budgeting for in 2025. Substantially more. That was the impact of RNC. It's almost impossible to replicate the financial impact of the RNC in any other year by any other combination of events. That's why the political conventions are so sought after. The second unique circumstance in 2024 is a familiar one. That is the interest income earned on the expansion project funds. As we've reported over the last 2 years, income earned from the funds has been significant due to the relatively high interest rate environment, which really started ticking up beginning in 2022. While this was good news for the project, it inflated the district's overall net income number. Once the project funds are completely drawn down, which should be later this week, the income will go to zero. Similar to the RNC, this type of financial impact cannot be replicated or replaced in 2025 through normal business operations. So if we want a more apples to apples comparison of 2025 to 2024, it's appropriate to adjust 24 net income by subtracting out the incremental income earned from RNC above and beyond a typical year, and also the interest income related to the project. This exhibit shows what the income in 24 would have been after making those adjustments. You can see that we go from a year-over-year growth number of -3% to a positive growth number of 11% and change. So that's a caveat regarding comparisons to 24. One final note to consider as we review the 25 budget, and that's regarding the actual events on the calendar for the upcoming year, and more importantly, when those events were booked. Visit Milwaukee and the district sales teams are not living in 2024 right now. They're living in 2027, 2028, and beyond. As Marty noted in September's board meeting, we have events booked on our calendar right now, as far out as 2032. So what does that have to do with 2025? Well, much of the events on our calendar for the upcoming year were booked in 2021 as we were in the midst of the COVID crisis. During that time, meeting planners were hesitant to book events, particularly the large citywide events, and those that did book committed smaller than typical budgets to the event. It was unclear when the event supply would completely rebound from COVID, and in order to ensure our new north building and renovated south building were filled with activity once the construction was completed, our teams booked events aggressively and quickly. While no event booked was projected to show a net loss on the income statement, the backdrop of COVID suppressed potential future revenues. Also remember that our sales team had only marketing collateral to use when selling the north building. It hadn't been built yet, so that's a leap some event planners weren't willing to make at the time. We therefore view the projected results of 2025 with the understanding that income per event will likely be less relative to future years. So while there's a lot to be excited about in 2025, 2026 and beyond are shaping up to be more impactful due not just to the improved environment for bookings following the doldrums of 2021, but also due to the publicity from RNC and the spectacular project which was completed. Both have brought incredible notoriety to our campus in Milwaukee. So let's turn to page 16, and this is where the budget process really begins, with establishing the event mix from which we can derive direct operating revenues and expenses. And when I say establish the event mix, we're really focusing in on the number of events, types of events, and requirements of those events. Looking at the event mix summary, you'll see several years of data. Column A represents our 25 budget event mix. In 21, you'll find we're projecting to host 382 events across our campus next year. Of the 382, approximately 30% of those events are considered blue sky, However, only 5% of our event operating income is driven by those blue sky events. So we believe the overall risk of the budget based on these assumptions is low. You can see we're projecting a full slate of events from our team tenants in the arena. And we're expecting 37 total events from PTG in our theater. Overall, we believe this budget event mix is reasonable, is a reasonable representation of what we can expect for the upcoming year. So let's turn to page 17, which represents the district's income statement. The line items along the left-hand side are the same revenue and expense categories we review at each board meeting. Column A represents the 25 budget numbers, column B the 24 forecast, and column C is the variance between the two, with columns E through H representing the past several years. I'd like to start with the bottom line first. You can see on line 66, we're projecting net income before depreciation expansion debt to be just about 29 million, a decrease over our 24 forecast number of 29.7 million. Again, for reasons just explained regarding RNC, interest income, and the circumstances in which 25 event activity was booked, management is not concerned about this year-over-year decrease. So let's talk about what's driving the 25 net income numbers, starting with the top line operating revenues first. Line 1, lease revenue is at $4.5 million. You can see it's substantially less than the 24 number, and that is due to the RNC. However, if not for the RNC in 24, 2025 would represent the most lease revenues budgeted for in a given fiscal year in the history of the district. Lines 2, 3, 4, 5, and 8 are all up. These are the ancillary event revenue lines. Notice a substantial increase in line 4, food and beverage. Northwestern Mutual returns to the district after a 1-year hiatus due to the RNC. Crew is back in our building after their very successful event in 2022. And Baird will be hosting their gathering of team members at our facilities this summer. All three of these events, amongst others, are substantially driving food and beverage revenue in 2025. We're also expecting to see a substantial increase in catered events year over year due to the operation of 2 ballrooms for a full 12 months. Line 10, advertising revenues up as we'll see a full year in 2025 of our new deals with Pepsi, Potawatomi, We Energies, all of which were partial years in 2024. Additionally, we're budgeting to increase the number of new partners in our portfolio. Line 11, naming rights revenue is up as we see a full fiscal year of the Baird naming rights agreement. Recall that the first 13 months of the contract was considered a transition period until such time the expansion was completed. During this time, the naming rights fees were discounted. May of 24, the full naming rights rate went into effect. Line 12, parking revenues also up year over year due to a full year of operation. In total, operating income is expected to be up by almost 13% from 2024. Moving down to operating expenses, line 27, you can see we're projecting a full year increase of just over 11%. And that's really driven by 3 line items. We'll start with line 15, wages. There's a couple factors worth noting. Number one, we're budgeting to provide rate adjustments, both merit and otherwise, across the organization. And we're also seeking to fill a number of new positions, most of which are focused on safety and security, as the footprint of the district campus has grown due to the addition of the North Building. Line 18, utilities, we're expecting a year-over-year increase, largely due to a full year of the North Building in operation. And we'll be monitoring this number closely throughout the year, and we'll adjust our future forecasts accordingly. Line 25, repairs and maintenance is up substantially year over year. In addition to the North Building coming online and the consumption of more resources by that asset, we've also seen a shift in the strategy of how we manage these assets. And the major driver of this shift has been our new VP of Facilities, Damon Murray. He's provided a fresh set of eyes to our repairs and maintenance program since he joined with us in January, eventually replaced our longtime Vice President Bob Seafeld, who retired in June. And notably, Damon and his team have worked to develop a plan that more heavily invests in preventative maintenance programs for the various systems and infrastructure needed to support our core businesses. While this has resulted in a chunky increase in this budget line item, we believe in the long term it will yield savings to the district in the form of less emergency repairs, which can be expensive, and a more manageable CapEx budget. Of course, there's other puts and takes here, but these 3 categories are the primary drivers of that 11% increase previously noted on line 27. Overall, the change in operating revenues, the change in operating expenses produces a healthy increase in our net operating income of almost 21%, as noted on line 28 there. Moving on to non-operating revenues, tax revenues line 34 is projected to increase by 4%. This is consistent with the projections we're making as part of the debt defeasance plan. Line 35, interest income is down substantially year over year, again, due to the lack of income earned on the project funds held in trust, as those funds will be completely drawn down before year-end 24. Still, we do expect to earn some amount of interest income on the remaining restricted and unrestricted funds. Line 37, Bucks rent increase is consistent with the lease agreement. And we've assumed an increase in line 38, Bucks district ticket surcharge. And we do expect the Bucks to be in the playoffs again. And notable events such as the men's NCAA tournament return to Milwaukee in 25 will drive a nice bump in this category year over year. Moving on to non-operating expenses, line 65, you can see this is up year over year by 4.6%. Line 41, salaries is up about $200K, representing only a 3% increase in this line item. Line 44, health and dental insurance is up as we expect new full-time employees to enroll in our benefits programs. Line 49, visit Milwaukee is up year over year. This is a payment determined by a formula as defined in our contract with them, driven primarily by city and county hotel tax revenues collected by the district. As those revenues grow, so too does this Milwaukee's payment. Line 52, IT is significantly up year over year. You heard me say this at the top of the presentation that we're making substantial investments in technology platforms in 25. We are looking to implement solutions across most of our departments, including building services, public safety, marketing, corporate partnerships. Perhaps the most significant investment, however, is in the finance department as we look to implement a true ERP system. Line 53, insurance is up, largely a result of a full year of property premiums on the expanded north premises. Line 62, miscellaneous expenses up. Amongst other items, we captured in this category expenses related to employee engagement, including but not limited to employee parking. Over the past 3 years, parking has been a project expense, and 25 will see a full year of this expense in the income statement. In note line 64, bond interest expense is down. This is the debt that existed on the district's books before the expansion. As more of this debt matures and is paid off, we'll continue to see this expense decrease. Conversely, line 67, you can see the interest expense increasing as we don't begin paying off that expansion debt until 2027. Line 68, depreciation expenses up significantly as we recognize our first full year of depreciating the North Building and all its furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Those are the puts and takes of the income statement, all of which lead to that positive net income number of just over $29 million before depreciation. Are there any questions on the income statement before we move on?
Questions for Steve?
Okay. Let's move on to the capital budget, pages 19 and 20. And this list is pretty substantial. As was the case in prior years, we've segmented expenditures into 3 tiers, with tier A being the priority and focuses on projects that deal with life safety, building functionality, code compliance, and contractual obligations. Our spend in 2025 of $3.9 million is greater than the approximately $3 million we're expected to spend in 2024. A couple of projects worth noting here. Line 59, the public address sound system in the Panther Arena is beyond its useful life and needs to be replaced. That's a substantial investment of approximately $1.2 million in 2025. Line 29, roof life safety, is a project that consists of installing or replacing a roof safety system across all 3 of our buildings. This includes safety lines and rails to protect roofers from falling off the roof. And lines 16 through 21 address renovation and modernization of the various elevators in the South Building. Some of you may recall we went through a similar process with our escalators about 4 years ago. We are taking a phased approach to this project, addressing a couple of elevators each year. Other than that, not a lot of other big noteworthy projects. A lot of repeats from prior years as we continue to invest in the infrastructure. Are there any questions on the capital budget? Okay, well, the next 2 pages in our packet are the budget cash flow projections. One exhibit for restricted revenues, one exhibit for unrestricted revenues. Starting with the restricted cash flow, page 21, the news is positive, where we continue to show growth in that fund balance and expect to end the year at almost $27 million as restricted tax revenues are budgeted to outpace annual debt service payments. This exhibit does assume we execute the defeasance transaction in November of 24, which would pull out of this fund about $14 million before year end. You can see at the bottom of this page, we've estimated what the balance may look like if we don't execute the defeasance transaction. Regardless of the balance, continued growth of this fund remains a position of financial strength for the district. As for unrestricted revenue, page 22, line number 1 is where we expect the cash balance to be as of January 1st. Line 25, what we expect the cash balance to be as of December 31st. And line 24 is the net change of the year, a decrease of about $934K. The income statement we previously reviewed is driving the numbers in this exhibit. And at this point in time, management is not concerned with the negative unrestricted cash flow in 25. And frankly, we're cautiously optimistic that this number could improve throughout the year should we be able to capitalize on opportunities as they present themselves. The budget plan for 25 allows both restricted and unrestricted funds to remain in a stable and healthy position. And we believe the district is well positioned to grow that unrestricted cash balance in 2026 as we expect stronger margins from our meeting and convention event activity. As I mentioned at the top of the presentation, this is a budget that management is proud of, that will be challenging to meet, but does not introduce material risk to the district's financial position. Mr. Chairman, that's my report. Happy to answer any questions. And if there are none, management would ask that the board pass a motion adopting the proposed 25 budget.
Are there any questions for Steve, the budget, or Marty overall? Okay. With that, I will seek a motion for approval of the budget for 2024.
Adoption of the budget.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
That was an aye, I think. All right, budget is approved for 2024. Steve, team, Marty, thank you all for working on that. And I know it's a lot of work and a lot of diligence to get there. Lack of any questions shows the preparedness with the groups. This is Steve's Super Bowl right here.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
You
look like it.
Yeah. Before we leave this agenda item, Mr. Chairman, there is another vote that we do ask the board to take every year at this meeting, which is a resolution detailed on page 23 of the board packet. The purpose of the resolution is to authorize management to apply funds held by the trustee towards the purchase of approved capital expenditure items and projects. As I mentioned, this resolution is adopted annually, and while it seems a bit perfunctory, its adoption today is extremely important in order for the district to execute the capital plan that was presented and approved by the board just moments ago. Again, a pretty straightforward request. It's simply transferring funds from the trustee to the district's operating accounts.
Any questions about that?
Can I just have a minute to read it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just taking a minute for those on virtually. We're just taking a minute to make sure everyone has a chance to read through it. Speed reader. Liz is a speed reader. Are there any questions? Liz, you have any questions? No. All right. With that, we'll seek a resolution for approval to authorize the Wisconsin Center District President to apply funds from the capital maintenance account towards the purchase of equipment for capital maintenance items.
Second.
Yep. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Resolution is approved. Thank you, Steve.
Hey, Jim, just real quick, in terms of a procedural question, the resolution calls for approval by 2/3 of the vote of members of the board. Will we have that today, or I know we have a quorum there? Okay.
Yes, we do, Grady. Thank you. Yep. We're only, I think, we're only one person down today, but everyone that has joined. So thank you. All right, on to the next and last topic for Steve Marsh today. Today, easement discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today we're asking the board to adopt a resolution authorizing district manager to execute bond defeasance transaction pursuant to authorizing resolution detailed on page 34 of your packets. This plan was presented and thoroughly reviewed at September 27th board meeting by Baird and Quarles Brady. Subsequent to that meeting, management, Baird and Quarles Brady, along with input from the state of Wisconsin Capital Finance team, have reviewed alternative proposals to retire long-term debt and concluded that the defeasance plan originally presented most effectively and efficiently accomplishes the goals of the district's long-term strategic financial plan. And this conclusion was documented in a memo sent to board members last week. As stewards of this organization, management strongly believes this transaction will contribute to the future long-term success of the district. Mr. Chairman, we're happy to entertain any questions from the board, and if there are none, management would request the board adopt the authorizing resolutions detailed on page 34 of the packet today, which would authorize management to execute this.
Great. I know we went through this previous meetings, and I know there have been some questions that have come up, and I think Steve and Marty have fielded those from other members of the board. Is there anything that has come up since then that we would like more discussion on? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't think this is worthy of discussion, but maybe a quick answer. And going through all the materials, and Steve, you did a great job presenting this, which is fairly a complex issue in a very simplified way. If I think of the main two reasons as to why we do this around, well, it all centers around our financial strength, but particularly saving some cash with regard to repayment, as well as freeing up capacity for our ability to take on more debt, if you will. If you were to, kind of judge those two, which would be the most important for defeasance for us right now? Is it the savings or the increased capacity with regard to debt?
Brady, I think the future debt savings are really important as we try to smooth out that increasing debt service line that's presented on one of the graphs in the Baird presentation. And this was actually a goal that we tried to accomplish in March of 2020, just before COVID. That was the original sort of looking graph that we were looking to execute. Of course, COVID upended all of our best well-laid plans. But I think even more important than that, Grady, is that by defeasing the debt, we have the opportunity to increase the district's bond ratings. We'll be circling back with Standard & Poor's perhaps next week to talk through with them that hopefully this transaction was approved today, and hopefully they increase our rating as a result of that. And why that's important is that over the course of the next several years, we could be coming back to the board to seek authorization to refinance additional debt. And as our bond rating increases, it becomes less expensive to do that, which will result in more savings for the district.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve.
Good question. Are there any other questions before we?
Other than refinancing, are you looking to take on more debt?
I don't think so, not in the short term. No.
If we were to do so, we have to come to the board with it anyway. But there's nothing afoot that we're looking to take additional debt on for.
Okay.
Yes.
I just think this is good strategic thinking and good for the people who pay the bills. Bud, Marty, and Steve, and others for this out.
I'm looking for
All right.
debt defeasance resolution.
Second. Do we have all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. The debt defeasance has been approved. Thank you. Thank you, team. Appreciate it. Steve, good day. Enjoy the weekend now. Thank you. Before we move over to the CEO report, I did just want to recognize our CEO here sitting next to me before I introduce you. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at the Milwaukee Business Journal. I think recently was named one of the top CEOs and top executive from the C-Suite Awards for 2024. So we want to publicly recognize that, Marty, for you and all your work and your leadership in doing that. And my understanding is hot off the press. The Sea Level Focus, which is another publication, is also named you, Marty, one of the top 10 inspiring CEOs. So that digital story will be coming out, the WCD social media pages as well. So thank you for your leadership, and I just want to publicly thank you and make sure everyone. With that, turn it over to you for the CEO report, Martin.
That other one.
Are you going to leave us in free agency?
Wow, I was not expecting that introduction. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the Finance Committee for your support and guidance during the budget process. And thank you to the full board for approving not only the budget for 2025, but also the proposal. We believe that both the budget and proposal are two actions that really keep the district on the right path to ensure our financial stability and the solvency of this organization. So thank you for that. Since the September board meetings and convention sales departments, along with Visit Milwaukee, executed a contract with an association group for August of 2025, a very significant food and beverage commitment that we have been working with for a while. It was just very happy that closed in the past 3 weeks. They also finalized a flurry of activity and executed the Hunting Moon Powwow agreement that we work with Potawatomi on, and that event occurred this past weekend. Something that we've been talking to them about for over a year because it usually happens in our facility. They were looking at other options, and 3 weeks before the event, let us know that we really want to finalize it and get it done. So kudos to everyone on the district's team for working out the business elements as well as all of the operational activities needed to support that event. Since we last met, PTG announced a show with comedian Joe Coy in the Miller High Life Theater on March 1st of 2025. He was here last spring of 23, and sold out. On the topic of sold out events, last week we had Avatar, The Last Airbender, also in the Miller High Life Theater through PTG. With its success, PTG is pursuing similar film and live music opportunities so that we can capture more of an activity over in the theater. In the Panther Arena, the Admirals opened their regular season last weekend, and UWM commences their men's basketball games mid-November. Lastly, the Wave, which again will be playing 12 home games in the Panther Arena, start their schedule in December. On the corporate partnership side, in conjunction with the start of the sports seasons, corporate partnership signed a multi-year agreement with Husinger's for their famous sausage promotion in our buildings and also to sell the product for Levy restaurants. An integral part of the Baird Center expansion was our commitment to sustainability and energy efficiency. During the design phase, we identified a number of key energy conservation strategies, and we engaged Focus on Energy to assess and determine the future cost savings realized by investigating these strategies. Earlier this week, we received their final verification report. By mindfully designing the facility and deliberately selecting energy efficient fixtures and equipment, the annual energy cost savings is projected to be just under $300,000. Specific elements of the design that contributed to these savings include low flow restroom fixtures, improved wall, roof, and window assembly, beyond premium efficiency fan and pump motors, VFD pumping, hot water and chilled water pumps, improved cooling efficiency, a VFD chiller, and a VFD cooling tower. Now, you may ask, what does VFD stand for, and what does it mean? I had to look it up to make sure I understand. VFD stands for Variable Frequency Drive. A VFD is a motor controller that regulates the speed and torque of an electric motor by changing the frequency and voltage of the power supply. VFDs are used to control the speed of machinery such as pumps and fans. They help to save energy. VFDs improve system efficiency and reduce energy consumption. They reduce noise. VFDs can help to lower noise levels from pumps and fans. And VFDs extend a machine's useful lifetime by reducing mechanical stress. There will not be a test on VFDs or pumps or what have you, but it does validate our commitment to sustainability, including our impact on the environment by controlling and minimizing our consumption of energy. Sustainability has become one of the factors meeting planners consider when selecting a convention center to host their event. We plan to use this verification report with these meeting planners. During the Bid 21 annual meeting earlier this month, it was held in Baird Ballroom. The WC was recognized 2024 Brick and Mortar Award for the opening of the expanded and modernized Baird Center. On Wednesday of this week, Exhibitor Magazine announced 25 convention centers as winners of its 6th annual Centers of Excellence Awards, of which Baird Center is included. The Buyer's Guide to Trade Show Product and Services launched this initiative to identify and recognize North America's best convention centers for trade shows and events. According to the editor of Exhibitors Magazine, the Centers of Excellence Award allows exhibit managers to identify exhibitor-friendly venues that make their experiences at trade shows and events smooth and successful, noting everything from health and safety protocols to the cost and quality of Wi-Fi access can have a significant impact on exhibiting companies' experiences at events. The facilities on this list have proven their ability to host trade shows and events of all sizes while providing world-class service and state-of-the-art accommodations. Well, I won't name all 25 of the centers, but in addition to Baird Center, the list includes some pretty notable properties. The Atlanta Convention Center, Baltimore Convention Center, Charlotte Convention Center, Colorado Convention Center, Greater Columbus Convention Center, Indiana Convention Center, Kentucky International Convention Center, Los Angeles Convention Center, Miami Convention Center, San Diego Convention Center, Seattle Convention Center, and the New Orleans Ernest Memorial Convention Center. The company in which we have been listed is incredible and something that all of us should be proud of. I don't think 6 years ago we would have been the company of any of these convention centers. In addition to naming the world's 25 best convention centers for trade shows and exhibits, Exhibitor Magazine's Centers of Excellence program will present 5 special awards. Winners of these awards will be announced November 13th. The one of the 5, I'm going to just focus on one, and that is in the best convention center, 100 to 500,000 square feet of exhibit hall space. We're a finalist, along with Colorado Convention Center, the Seattle Convention Center. Again, a stellar group to be in. At our next board meeting in January, we will have 2 special presentations. Mike Abrams from CAICON will present his final expansion and modernization report. Peggy Williams-Smith will present the financial impact report from the 2024 RNC. Week from today, in an hour, I am heading out for a vacation that was 4 years in the planning. It's a bucket list trip to Ecuador, Galapagos Islands, and Peru, and I'll be out of the office for 2 weeks. I'll have limited access to cell phone and Wi-Fi service.
I don't remember that.
We'll be checking TDB. Before I conclude my report, I would like to acknowledge Steve Marsh and Kyle Graham for leading us through the budget process, and as well thank the senior leadership team for their hard work in formulating the revenue and expense projections. Mr. Chairman, that concludes last CEO report, 2024. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Gerard.
I fear that I'll be accused of sleeping at the wheel. Needed to go back to something. That FPC venue, do we derive any income from that?
We do not. We do not directly. Now, if people are visiting the venue and staying in hotels, eating in our restaurants and bars, yes, we will see incremental sales revenues from that.
So the
But
Bucks
nothing on
get the
site.
revenue, and we don't get anything off of their ticket sales.
That is correct.
Need to throw that into our next budget negotiation.
So make that note for 26 years from now.
Hey, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Marty, good report. This is purely for curiosity, Marty. I heard last week, I know you're really interested now when I say I heard. I heard last week that there's a group in Milwaukee, I assume is affiliated with the Bucks, that have put out a bid or proposal to land a WNBA franchise in Milwaukee. Just wondering if we were a part of that proposal or that plan, or how involved are we? Because I'm assuming that if we do get a team, they would play at one of our venues.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect that last part of the comment, Grady. I learned of, I can't speak for anyone other than myself, Grady. I learned of the Bucks ownership interest in a WNBA team last week, as anyone else would have when it was released publicly. My initial reaction to the news was one of tremendous excitement, because I've worked with women's basketball, both amateur and professional, for 3 decades, and just think it's a great product, and was a women's basketball fan long before it became vogue in the past year. Selfishly for us, I assumed if they were going to get an expansion team, that they would play in the Fiserv Forum. I gave no consideration, perhaps wrongly, that they would play elsewhere. If they played in the Fiserv Forum, I was very excited because we would see the ticket revenue from every ticket sold for every event. We just add to the event mix. So we have a real opportunity if they play in Fiserv Forum. If they were to play in Panther Arena, love that too, but I've had no discussions with them at all about that, Brady. But now that you raise it, I will certainly reach out and make our venue available.
Okay, great. Because the other thing I'm thinking, is it just incremental ticket sales, or is it a new lessee since it's a new entity, or how does that all work out? So that's kind of what was going under my mind.
We have no involvement in what they book, how they sell, who plays. So none of their contractual arrangements are we involved in. It's clear we get a prescribed per ticket fee for every ticket sold. So we have no involvement in their discussions, negotiations with Marquette, with any concerts that come in. It's a flat, fixed ticket fee, regardless of the ticket price.
Okay, got it. That answers a lot too. Thanks, Marty. And enjoy your vacation.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Marty on the CEO report?
We need to move to approve his trip.
You can approve the trip.
Let me check
the financing of
Let me check with council over here. All right, council says we're good. We don't have to.
Not a business trip.
We would have to approve that probably. All right. With that, if there aren't any other questions, I think we'll just move to the next couple of agenda items. First, future board meeting dates are in the back all the way through 2025, and I think Michael has sent out those invites to your calendars already. So please make sure. I think we're trying to keep them to a minimum for everybody's sake of time, and all the things that everyone's involved with here. In future board discussion items, please reach out to me, reach out to Marty, Michael. We'll make sure that we get them on there again. In accordance with all our governance, we have to make sure that they are on the agenda. If it's going to be for the full board, at least a week in advance when we publish the agenda. So if it comes in after that, it's something we probably will not be able to discuss until the next board meeting. With that, if there aren't any other questions, I will seek a motion to adjourn. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, and have a fantastic weekend, everybody.